Hello, 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 and welcome to the Rev Up, where we talk all things revenue growth for business. If you are responsible for marketing, for sales, for account management, anything to do with revenue growth, or in fact you own your own business and want to learn what is working, what isn't working out there in the world of revenue growth, and maybe you want to have a little bit of fun along the way, you are absolutely in the right place. My name's Ben Shipley. I've spent the last 19 years of my life building and leading revenue teams all over the world. And the Rev Up is brought to you by Trust the Process, where we help small to medium-sized businesses grow by leveraging cost-effective, skilled staff offshore, as well as technologies like CRM systems, things like HubSpot or ActiveCampaign. You can visit www.trusttheprocess.com.au if you would like to find out how we can help you or just to have a chat and ask some questions. Today on the Rev Up, we have my good friend, Laura Piccardi. Laura is the founder of Uppy. She's a speaker, content creator, comedian. I can absolutely vouch for that. Author of the best-selling book, Unfaked, and co-host of Banterpreneurs, which is an improv podcast for small business owners. Very, very, very much worth a listen. Laura's been involved in small business in some way her whole life. She now combines her English wit with her years of experience as a stress management expert, personal performance coach, and business leader to deliver unique experiences that show professionals and entrepreneurs how to think and behave and communicate a bit differently, so that they can achieve what they want really without burning out. That's kind of Laura's area of expertise. And obviously she's one of those people that just likes to have a bloody good time while doing it. And so very excited for the conversation with Laura today. We really get stuck into her story and some of the main lessons, including what came out of and what she learned after her whole business burnt down. So really excited for this show. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the show, Laura Piccardi.
Thank you very much. And the crowd goes wild.
Woo! Woo! I can't believe it. What a time to be alive.
Isn't it?
Laura, people won't necessarily know how we know each other, but we're friends, obviously, outside of the business world.
Yes.
We met through a mutual friend who also happens to be like in the entrepreneur space, running their own business.
Yeah.
And we both live on the beautiful Central Coast, trying to run businesses and work and be in this world from a little bit outside the city. Tell me,
yes.
What's it been like for you working 2 hours north of a major city in the world of entrepreneurship and business?
Well, I've got to tell you, for an English person, clearly I'm English. If I'd have done that in England, I just wouldn't have. Like 2 hours is a weekend away when you're in England. But in Australia, it's a very different perspective. So I will happily go to the city for meetings or for gigs or whatever, and it doesn't matter. I'll do it at the drop of a hat. But thank the Lord for all the virtual stuff that we've got, honestly, because it just makes it so much easier. I'm now with child, so it means I can still take gigs on that I might have had to say no to otherwise. So, and we get to live the dream, right? The beach is right there. We can go for a quick paddle and then come back and do afternoon meetings or whatever. Like, if you want to talk about balance, we definitely have the right setup to achieve that, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure. You and I suppose, like in those mutual friend settings, we've probably connected a little bit over a mutual appreciation of wine.
I was going to say
food,
that,
a bit of banter, but also, like a mutual love for business and entrepreneurship. Your business, Uppy Media, has, I suppose, come after like a sort of lifelong journey through small business. Tell us a little bit about, maybe I always say the half a glass of wine version. I suppose that depends on how fast you drink wine.
I'm English, don't forget, so very fast is the answer to that.
The half a glass of wine version of where this this journey all started for you, how you got to this point and kind of what you're working on at the moment.
Yeah, so look, I'll give you the English fast version. Otherwise we'll be here all day. So I basically, I feel like it was written in the sand for me that I was going to be a business owner, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it. I was basically born into business. So we lived above my parents' department store when I was born. My mum was working right up until the day she gave birth to me within that department store. I think I first started working there when I was maybe 3 years old, and I would price things up with the old, do you remember the old school pricing guns? I'd be out the back doing that in exchange for lollies. Nice. Probably they'd get reported for that nowadays. Yeah, exactly. And they used to trick us. So once you price something up, like the tag tail would come out the end. So they used to challenge my brother and I to see who could get the longest tail.
Oh, that's a classic.
I know.
That's a great challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Great. It's a great lesson actually in how to motivate team members. If you know that they're people that are goal orientated and like a challenge, then they figured that out pretty quickly with my brother and I. So I worked in that department store for, well, actually until I came to Australia. So really until I was 28 years old. On and off, I went to uni. I had different jobs, different careers and professions, but I would still work there on the weekend. I'd help them with their operations, their marketing, as I kind of learned more about that. So that was, honestly, I feel like that was the best education I could have got. I studied business at uni, but really to be in the thick of it and to be part of it, to make mistakes with them, to try things out, was the best learning that I could have had.
Yeah.
And also
I didn't know that about you. I think that's a similarity between us, that you literally lived above the department store.
Yes.
Like business almost in the family home. It was the same for me. My parents were wholesalers out of our house.
There you
in
go.
the surf industry. And so I grew up in small business with it literally being in our house, working from our house,
Yeah. And of course, now we would try to separate things, wouldn't we? Because we want that elusive balance, but it was different back in the day. And so actually then, so that was a really good learning for me. But what was also a really great learning was working with my dad. So our store sold, we had 3 departments: toys, bicycles, that went from kids bikes to high end, and then sports goods. And so as I grew up, I then went and worked more in the bike department with my dad, because it was more interesting. Like you actually had to sell something, particularly when it got to the high end stuff. It wasn't just an exchange, like when people are buying a toy. And I realize now in hindsight what a master seller my dad was and is. He basically would just have a conversation with people. They'd walk in, he wouldn't say, do you need any help? Like that was forbidden. We were not allowed to ask people that, because that just is a very closed question, right? He would just pass the time of day. He'd get to know them. He'd have a laugh. He'd probably spend too long with them, to be fair, but that's fine. And then he would sell them something based on what he'd found out about them and what they needed. And generally, he'd probably sell them something more than what they thought they'd come in for, in terms of the type of bike, all the accessories and everything. But they would be thanking him for that, because he sold it from a place of authenticity. So I realized in hindsight that was unbelievable learning for me. And as I'll say in my quick version, this is the quick version, by the way, that's where I've come back around to nowadays, is realizing the importance of authenticity. And that's why I love what you do, Ben, and why everything that you do resonates so well with me, because you're all about authenticity, looking after people, treating people as humans. And I kind of had that at the start, had to go away from that to then come back and really appreciate the power of that. So yeah, my dad taught me that without realizing very early on. And then I moved to Australia. I fell into the health and fitness industry. I became a personal trainer. Luckily, the gym that I did my work experience at said that they'd sponsor me to stay in the country. As any foreigner, expat, whatever you want to call us, would know, that's like the golden ticket.
Yep.
So I immersed myself in that industry, began managing that studio that I was working at. And then I had the opportunity to convert an old video store, if you remember what those things were, into a personal training studio. So I fitted out the whole thing. I put in bathrooms, offices, reinforced floors, like got all the equipment, you name it. I decked it out, and went through all the BS that goes with that, with all approvals and stuff. And so, yeah, then I found myself with owning a gym.
Wow.
So completely different industry, completely different way of working with people, of selling to people. You know, I was now selling more of a service, which isn't, you know, I didn't have a tangible thing. You know, here's a bike, do you want it? Essentially, was kind of the overarching thing we were doing in the shop. Whereas this was selling them something that they couldn't touch and feel. We were selling them an idea, basically.
You're ultimately selling them an ideal future version of themselves.
Exactly.
Right?
But the challenge of that is you cannot guarantee it, because you rely very much on their input. They have to do the work. So at that point, I really learned about for those listening, I'm doing the quotation marks, the sales process. So I did a lot of sales training and that around, you know, find out what their pain points are, kind of rub a bit of salt in the wounds, make them feel a bit worse about that, show them what will happen if they don't do anything about it, and then show them the possibilities if they do something about it, and then how I was the person and my gym was the person to help them achieve that. So I learned that process, and look, that was pretty good. Not all of it sat well with me, but I didn't have the confidence to figure out another way to do it. I just followed what I'd been taught, basically.
You must in the gym world also learn some lessons around like audience building, because you know there's that community aspect to bringing in members and having them support each other and work together and have fun and all those sort of things that aren't just about that end goal. There must be some lessons about that sort of community audience stuff in there too, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know whether I probably pushed that enough in the sales process. I was very, very much about that post sales, or I suppose that's still part of the process, actually, isn't it? The customer care. So the end of the sales process, I was all about that. I'd take them for coffee on Saturday mornings after boxing, and did lots of things to really build that community aspect, which then was great for retention, because that's the key, right? Once you've got people through the door, you want to keep them. And for me, I wanted to keep them because I knew their health and wellness was going to benefit if they stayed with us as well. So there was that kind of moral aspect to it. But yeah, 100%. I think in hindsight, I could have leaned more into that community aspect rather than just selling them on that, yes, we can help you lose 10 kilos kind of thing, which I think is what we were taught to kind of focus on, that goal that they came in with. So that was interesting. I'll tell you what was more interesting was within the first year, towards the end of the first year of operation, I got a call one afternoon from my head trainer. I'd gone home early one night because I was very, very tired. And I got a call from my head trainer to say, hey, Laura, there's been a bang and there's some smoke in the gym. And so I headed back down to the gym thinking, oh my God, can I not just have one afternoon off? I'm sure all of the business owners out there will resonate with that. Do I have to do everything? And very, very long story short, I got back down there. Over the course of the next 3 hours, I stood and watched my whole gym crumble to the ground. There'd been a fire in the neighboring restaurant. And unfortunately, I was out the back, my building was out the back, and the flames from their fire just ripped through my building and tore my entire business down.
Literally up in smoke.
Literally. And it wasn't an insurance job, by the way, if anyone's wondering that. And if it was a shit one.
But you were insured, right?
I wasn't sure, but not for enough. So I could do a whole podcast on those learnings. However, I relocated my business the next day to another gym. I found someone who would let me take all of my clients and trainers there. and carried on training from there. So that was interesting, because I wasn't necessarily fulfilling what I'd promised them when I got them on board, the clients and the trainers. You know, everything had changed. We still promised to deliver the results, but it was in a completely different setting, completely different scenario. Of course, you know, things were up in the air a little bit. So for me, I found that very difficult, because I felt like I was being inauthentic, even though it wasn't my fault. Which eventually
people were actually a bit forgiving.
Oh, totally. There was only one client out of, I think I had 60 on the books at that point. There was only one client who didn't come down, and it was just because she didn't drive, and it was a little bit further and she just couldn't do it. But everyone else followed us. I even had one trainer who I'd just got on board, and I said to him, I'm going to have to find you somewhere else to work, because I'm not going to get clients on at the rate I said I would, so I'm not going to be able to pay you. And he actually said, Laura, I'm just enjoying learning from you. Can I just stay for free and keep learning from you? And I was like,
wow,
cool. That was a nice little reinforcement that I'd probably been doing a little bit all right with the team. So that was interesting. So I really had to change things up then. You know, if I brought a new client on, the conditions were so different. So I really had to learn how to still sell them on the thing that we could do, but just in a slightly strange setting.
What did you do though? Because I always find moments like this really interesting. They ultimately end up being these little kind of pivot points, and sometimes people go through them, they survive them, but then they decide to go a different direction. There's lots of different things that happen in those moments, but ultimately, whether a business survives or not comes down to maybe 4 or 5 of these moments over the years where it's like, I got to do something. I got to figure out what to do. Like when you had that moment and all of a sudden you're like, I don't have anywhere to deliver for these guys. Like, what was your approach to just working your way through it, figuring out how am I going to keep this thing going?
Yeah, I just knew that I had committed to helping these people, and to the trainers. I'd sort of committed to helping them achieve their goals. So for me, it wasn't a question of would we keep going. It was just a question of where and how. So actually, to start with, so that happened on a Friday. So the Saturday boxing class we did in the park the next day. And then I remember, so this was all in Maroubra, and I was living in an apartment that looked sort of over Maroubra Beach at the time. And I remember being on the phone to someone, and I looked across and I saw Maroubra Seals, which for anyone that doesn't know, it's like an RSL, but they've got this awesome gym on the top floor. They've got a 25-meter swimming pool. It's amazing. And I was just like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm going to go and speak to Maroubra Seals. So I literally walked up there and asked to speak to the director, told him my predicament, and he said, yes, you can come and operate from there. So I just didn't ever have the mindset that we weren't going to continue. I knew we'd figure it out. I just didn't know how, actually. So I guess that's just good testament to going, I know it'll be all right, and I don't have to have the answers. I've just got to put one foot in front of the other at the moment, and know that it will take me to wherever it is that I need to go.
Yeah. I think that that those moments are the moments really where leaders have to step up. And you do see so many businesses where they have, it's not as obvious as my place of business just burnt down, right?
Yeah.
But there is a metaphorical portion of the business that is burning down. And sometimes people don't want to look at it. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to focus on it. And they find 50 other things to get distracted by, when this is really the most pressing thing. And I think sometimes entrepreneurs, leaders in businesses, even if, if you're leading a team, if you're leading a department, if you're leading a country in a business, or you own it yourself, when there's that burning building, like it has to be your job to just go, this is everything. This is everything I'm going to focus on. I'm going to get something done with this and work through and push everything else aside, push all the other distractions aside. like, have you? I know you've obviously got a background in coaching and things like that, but have you seen that sort of thing as well? Like that lack of ability to just go, this is the thing I got to get sorted.
Oh, 100%. We love to focus on all of the other things. We've got the different personality styles. You know, some people like to avoid things. Some people just get anxious about the things. Some people go in overdrive and just sort of only focus on that, but do far too many things around it. But whatever the way is that people approach it, the whole point is they're just trying to avoid it because they're scared that, and it's always that big scary thing, right, that, you know, if you do address it, everything's going to be better. And so I find that focusing on that end result, or probably the core result, is the most important thing for me. I knew the most important thing was to continue to fulfill my promise that I had made to my clients and to my trainers. And so that was like a laser focus, like a homing missile. I just knew that was the goal that we were working towards, and I knew we'd get there. I just knew we would. I just had no friggin' idea how. And it didn't matter. I think that's the thing as well, is we always try to, we think we have to have the answer straight away, and that in itself can paralyze us from moving forward. Whereas if we can just, same as if you're going up a ladder, right, you wouldn't go from the floor straight to the top rung of the ladder. You have to take each step at a time and focus on each rung at a time. So I find that's the most important thing. You know what's at the top of the ladder, you know you need to get there, you know you want to get there, but then you got to bring your focus back down to each rung and just take each rung as it comes.
Yeah. And what happened after the gym?
Well, I actually burnt out, haha, pun intended. I kept it going for 9 months at this other place. But I just, behind the scenes, like, to everyone I was fine on the surface, but behind the scenes I was adrenally fatigued, couldn't get off the couch, like all sorts of health issues. So I did have to come to the decision that, like, I've got to shut this down. I didn't know how much insurance money I was getting, if I could open another thing, all that kind of stuff. So I shut that down. By the way, just something came into my mind that I wanted to share about my whole gym thing, and that aligns nicely with, we think we have to have everything sorted. When I started my gym, we had lots of delays opening the physical building because we had like issues with the ramp that was like 1 degree too steep or something stupid like that. So I actually started training my first clients at the beach. We did their initial consults and nutrition sessions in my car, in the car park at the beach. They were paying full price that they paid when they were actually in my full decked out personal training studio. And it just popped into my mind then, as I was thinking back, I was like, wow, I think, and they stayed with me forever, those clients. I'm still friends with them now. And I think that's probably, although I didn't realize it at the time, a testament to the authentic way I had brought them on, and the rapport that we built quite quickly. They were prepared to start in these really shitty conditions, but they weren't worried about the bells and whistles. They just believed that I could get them the result that they wanted, and they were willing to go on that journey with me, however it looked. And so I think that's a really nice example of, you don't have to have all your shit together. You don't have to have all the answers. You know, as long as you are coming from that place of authenticity, you are still delivering on what you promise. It might just be in a slightly different way or context. Then I think that's the most important thing. That just came into my brain as we were talking, which I thought might be valuable.
It's amazing to think like that. Like, we always think how we need everything to be perfect. I think, you know, sometimes in business, because you know all the, like, what's under the rug, you know, all of the problems and what the real deal is. And because of that, sometimes I think we undervalue what it is that other people might see in us, and other people might see in service, and what we do. And you know, like, it's better to start doing your nutrition sessions and your plans and things sitting in the car in a car park than to not start.
100%.
Right? It might not be the ideal environment to start in, but it's better than not starting.
Exactly. And as long as you're open and transparent, they could have walked away if they wanted to. But I was always open and transparent with them. And then they had the choice if they wanted to, freeze in the car park or not. Anyway, so sorry, I digress, but I thought that was a nice point to add. So yeah, after I shut the gym down, I then had to figure out how to get my health, my body, my life back, because I was really at rock bottom. I'd fully burnt out. And so through that process, I learned so much on my personal journey, but I did extra, new courses, qualifications, read every bloody book you can think of, to really come to the understanding that it was my mind that had been driving my physiology. Things that you just spoke about then, my business was also metaphorically burning down in different ways, but I was avoiding them. So I had all this pressure on me all the time. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to be the best. I'd set really high goals that were too high to achieve and then beat myself up for not achieving them. It was all this kind of stuff that was constantly putting me in fight or flight mode. That eventually led to my demise, if you like, physically. So once I learned that, and then I learned how to manage and overcome that, I realized that most people are going through this to some degree, particularly business owners, because we do have, a lot more responsibility on our shoulders when we're running the show. And so that's when I then went into coaching, particularly with business owners, professionals, and particularly around stress management and helping them change the way they think and behave as well, so that they can still achieve awesome stuff, maybe even more, but not work themselves into the ground at the same time, because it ain't fun.
Yep.
At all.
Yeah. And if anything, certainly been a key theme of the last few years. And so I suppose you were probably maybe a little earlier onto that
Yes.
that avenue than we've seen it become like a really prominent topic with a lot of people just really struggling and really feeling like they don't have the energy to keep going the last. And I found it really interesting that to start this year, actually, I found a lot of people were struggling to come back to work. Almost like it was the end of that whole COVID streak. And people actually got a chance to maybe take a little bit of a rest and just needed extra time for the batteries to recharge. That's what it felt like anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because it was good to be working from home because, there was no travel time, any of that kind of stuff. So there was a bit more time to have a bit more balance and do the things we wanted to do, health-wise or family-wise or whatever. But then there's also the isolation that comes with working from home, which is a slow burner. I find that on your mindset. And then, of course, if the mindset isn't operating at its optimum, that can then drive the physiology as well. So I think we're still in this state at the moment where we're trying to figure out how can we get that ideal kind of balance, or more ideal balance, where we do have physically a bit more time, but then we're still staying connected to communities. We're still feeding ourselves with the things that actually make us feel calm and present and allow us to then remain energized. It's not just about having more physical time, it's about that mental side as well.
Yeah. And the shift for lots of people that were used to working in offices, shifting to working from home, I think so many people ended up actually doing significantly more hours.
Yes.
Because there wasn't that geographical barrier to work and communication. I think that played a big part too, just the volume of hours that people are doing today, or particularly have been doing the last few years, is more than it was in 2019.
Yeah, absolutely. They went back to our parents' method of doing things. The work was in the home. So it was always there.
That's it. We weren't used to it. And then it was just like every time a ping goes off, it's like, oh, I'm back into work. Oh, another email, another Slack message, another whatever.
Crazy. But I tell you what was interesting for me with the coaching side of things as well. So initially, I got a lot of my business through physical networking, physical speaking gigs, with coaching, particularly the type I do and have been doing, it's a very personal thing. So I can't just rock up and go, hi, my name's Laura, would you like me to coach you around your deep, talk about your deepest, darkest things with me? You need to nurture the heck out of people before they're ready and willing to even have an initial conversation with you. So that was fine to start with physical networking and physical speaking gigs. But then when I went to take things digitally, I found that really difficult, because I then became a tiny, tiny, tiny fish, a minnow, if you will, in a very big pond. And it took my brain a while to understand that no one knows who I am. They do in my circles in Sydney or whatever, but online, no one knows who I am. And so I was very much guilty of trying to jump into bed on the first date with my audience and with my prospects. And also I was guilty of assuming that they knew more than they did, assuming that they knew that their challenges were because of stress. So I wasn't educating them correctly. I was jumping in, if you look at the customer journey, I was jumping in way too far along the journey. I hadn't done the courting and the legwork with them. So I then started to get all these feelings of failure and all that kind of stuff, which, as you would know and everyone listening would know, once those feelings start, it can be a bit of a spiral down. So for me, that was a very interesting learning around really understanding who it is you're talking to, where they're at and what they need to know. I had to step backwards and figure that out quick.
And like doing all of that in a digital environment is definitely different. And I think anybody that was just doing kind of, physical in-person delivery of whatever services, products, etc. they have, and had to shift to a digital service, probably found that was very much the case. But I also have seen pretty conclusively that the way people buy has changed in the last 3 years. I've been running sales training and business growth training for years, and I always was saying, years ago, I was saying how you sold 10, 15 years ago is different to how you have to sell now. But that's happened again. That's happened again in the last 2 to 3 years.
So tell me,
process.
In what way?
I would say probably the main one is where people get their information from now.
Right.
There is a lot more social in decision making than there used to be. There is a lot more. I think a good example of this is the massive expansion of decision makers in a decision making process now, particularly in B2B. It's gone up significantly because you can just pull in anyone from anywhere. They don't have to be in the office to be a part of the decision making process anymore, right? They can just jump in a Zoom or whatever. But actually that decision-making unit has extended out into people's personal and professional networks. And so a lot of which solution are they going to go with, which service are they going to go with, a lot of the discussion around how people should think about it, what the best way to solve the problem is and who should help them happens in places that we can't track and places that we don't know exist. Sometimes it's like a Facebook group. Sometimes it's a business networking community, but it's peers. It's peer-to-peer conversations now rather than just like review sites and going and talking to 3 or 4 companies and seeing which one you like the best. Like for the most part, people are pretty decided by the time they get to you, and that's really challenging if you are new to them. Or you are a new growing business, because you have to get in with people who are going to refer and approve of a decision of going with you in order to get some of those decisions made, especially if you want to scale that ability to close and convert.
And I guess I guess that is also highlights the importance of the way that you communicate your value, what you do, what your offer is as well. I guess when you're talking about that and all the different decision makers, you probably have to hone that even more, because you're then relying on one person or some other people to become your salespeople, right? You have
Yeah.
no control over, you can't communicate it to all the decision makers. So that's an interesting point. I think that you really got to know, you can't just kind of keep on talking until something lands. You got to really understand who you're talking to, what it is that they want, and then really refine your pitch according to that, and then hope that they can easily regurgitate that to all those different decision makers so they're getting the information they need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about the business coaching journey, and from there to now, to what you're doing.
Yes. So I very much focus on personal. So helping people with their personal mindset, personal behaviors, so that then they could operate better at their optimum within their businesses. So I just want to define that I wasn't a business coach. I need my own business coaches. And so, look, I quite honestly got the shits with the coaching industry a few years ago, particularly with the digital side of things. I felt like I was just surrounded by a lot of people promising a lot of things that they couldn't deliver. And I know they can't deliver that, because you cannot transform someone's life in a 6-week program. You know, I just knew they couldn't do that. So for me, I got to the point where I was like, God, am I going to have to make these big promises as well, just to get someone to look at my landing page, you know, just to get them through a tiny bit through the door? And if, you know, am I prepared to do that? And if not, then what? And I decided I'm not prepared to do that. I'm not prepared to make a promise that I know I cannot deliver. So I left. I walked away from my business, because at that point I didn't understand how to do it in a different way, in a more authentic way. And I think sometimes you just get to the point where you can't see the wood for the trees. You do have to take a step back. And at that point, I had to take a big step back. So actually, when I worked at a marketing agency as a copywriter for a bit, which was good on the job learning, actually. And then through that, I regained my confidence. I figured out more around who I was, what was important to me, what I wanted to be in business. I definitely, throughout my business journey, have been guilty of being a bit of a chameleon, and shape shifting to be who I think I should be in different situations. And so I finally got to the point, and apparently, audience, I'm allowed to say a swear word. I think I already have. I got to the point where I said, fuck it, basically.
Yes.
This is who I am. And this is where my value is. And so I'm going to deliver that in my business. So I came back to Uppy. I bring in comedy in what I do. I focus on giving people experiences. You know, I'm not just so I speak, I present, I do podcasts. And so it's all about authenticity. The key for me, everything I do, is I want people to see how good it is to be authentic. I want every person I interact with to leave feeling a bit positive, or feeling like they've, you know, just smiling because they've had something to do with me. So I realized that was important to me. So I focus more on delivering these experiences to corporates and to kind of open doors for people. Again, I'm not going to transform someone's life from one speaking gig, but if I can just get them to think a bit differently, show them some doors that they can walk through if they decide they want to, then my job is done. And then they can go and get the more specific help and advice that they need. And I've found that so many more opportunities and better opportunities have come my way when I've been able to communicate that to people, and when I've been operating that way, just having fun and getting shit done. That's my mantra. And just speaking from the heart and being real. I kind of felt like that in a lot of my business circles anyway. It just felt like it was all a veneer. And I'm not subscribing to that. So taking it upon myself to remove that veneer, at least in my world.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, look, the whole authenticity angle, I think, is one that has been talked about a lot. But there is layers to it. And you know, it's really interesting to think of it in terms of like who who am I trying to appeal to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately our marketing and our sales efforts are about trying to appeal to a certain customer group in order to be able to provide them a service. But if you have a group of people that would connect with who you already are, who you authentically are, by being any less than yourself, you become less to those people that you are the perfect fit for.
That's true.
Right?
That's very true.
You're actually lessening your value and lessening your appeal to your core and your perfect audience by trying to appeal to everyone. There's something I heard someone say years ago. I'm sure this is a quote from somebody famous, but
you can have it.
Yeah, a mentor of mine has been saying it for years, which is if you try to be everything to everybody, you'll be nothing to nobody, which obviously is not great grammar, but it's a great saying.
Yes, I've done that, people.
Yeah. Well, tell me about it. Tell me about your approach to, like, not just the buzzword of authenticity, but like, how do you actually deliver on that in a way where you can connect with people and achieve like a commercial business outcome from it?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely did that, particularly with coaching. My message and my offering was so watered down because I was so scared of niching and just saying this is the one thing I do. And absolutely, that was the result. I got nothing. It really didn't go well for me. I threw a lot of money away on different marketing campaigns and things, and that it just wasn't the right thing. But the more I've understood my value, the more I've been able to refine my offering, and the more I've been able to understand the types of people that offering is right for, and the type of people that I like to work with. So as well as the authenticity allowing me to have more fun in my business and really deliver over and above and beyond, once I do then work with someone, it allows me to understand which opportunities to take in business and which opportunities to say no to, and to confidently say no to those things. Because if it doesn't allow me to deliver in the best way possible as myself, then it's not the right thing for me. And I understand that now. But guess what? There's so many more things that are available to me that do allow me to be that person, and more have presented themselves to me than ever before as I've become much clearer. And then remember, I was saying about the mindset piece around that has to be sorted to give you energy. I have so much more energy when I'm doing these things because it's the thing that's aligned with who I am and what I want. Therefore, I deliver better, I get better referrals, so it then starts to become its own beast. It's not constantly looking for new leads all of the time. You just stand, you deliver what you do best, and then those people become your salespeople and your raving fans and come back and want to do more with you.
Yeah. And there's probably like a flip side opportunity cost to it as well, right? Like you do it less your way in order to appeal to people, to a wider audience. And so actually you appeal to your core audience less. You pick up a client that's less of a fit for you, that you end up spending way more time trying to figure out how to deliver for them. Way more time having to manage them and deal with complaints and all of that sort of stuff. And you probably don't get the client that would have gone with you that was a perfect fit for you. There's a whole opportunity cost side, like at Trust the Process. Pardon the Trust the Process example, because it might come across as a little bit of blatant self-promotion. But
you can have that one too.
Yeah, well, it's my show, so I can.
Yeah, totally. You're the boss.
So at Trust the Process, we obviously do offshore team members for people. And there's a lot of different ways that people go about offshoring, right? A lot of different ways. We absolutely intentionally will never be a cheap offshore provider. And a lot of people are looking for that, and that's okay, right? But we won't be a cheap one because we believe that wherever you are, whether you're in Australia or not, if you're overseas, whatever country you happen to be in, everybody deserves to be treated with respect, and everybody deserves to have a great job. And so we ultimately have like a no arseholes policy with our clients, right?
Great
Because
policy.
we want people that are going to be good to our people that are in the Philippines. We pay
Yeah.
them well, we pay them above market, we provide them with healthcare and social security and annual bonuses and all of this sort of stuff, because we don't just want to hire people as a blunt force instrument for people. We want to hire people into great jobs that they're going to stay with for the long term, that they're going to love the work and they're going to love who they work with. And for a lot of people, that's not what they're looking for offshore for. They're looking for offshore to get a volume of work done that they don't have to think about, that they can give to somebody else, and they can pay absolutely almost nothing for it, right?
And then they probably don't
That's
get the
not for
thing they
us.
wanted anyway at the standard that they want, and so they're not happy
Hey, look,
anyway.
some do well, right? There are
Do they?
some offshore providers that do that kind of race to the bottom model.
Right.
Some of them are pretty good, right?
Yeah.
But it's not for us. It's not what we believe in. We don't want to be in a situation where our team members are just getting hammered, having to make 150, 200 calls a day on the back of a dialer, just slogging through and hating their life. We want happy employees who love what they do and work with great clients, and we have to be particular about that. But that's what we enjoy, that's what we care about, and what makes us happy in the work that we do. And so we're going to miss out on some clients, right?
Yeah, but you don't want them anyway. And by communicating that as often as you can, wherever you can, you're going to attract the right people, right? That's why I jumped to the opportunity to be on this podcast, because I know that's what you stand for, and I want to be associated with people like that. I wouldn't be on a podcast with someone who was a race to the bottom. And I think that's another thing around being in business as well, is associating with the right people that are allowing your authenticity to flourish, and who are reinforcing that and not dragging it down, making you think you should be something that you're not.
Yep. Yeah, don't be a different person to win the deal. I think that's probably the best way to sum it up. Like, just be you. You'll win the right deals. It'll be terrifying to turn away customers.
Yeah.
It's even more terrifying to fire customers. I don't know, many people out there have been through that experience. Sometimes the greatest decision you can ever make is to fire your own customers, the wrong customers for you. And it's amazing how quickly they get replaced, usually with better customers.
Better ones. Yeah. And more sleep.
Much more sleep and much more time for your good customers.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting, actually. So sorry to cut you off.
That's okay. You go.
So also more my husband's thing, but I'm obviously the wife who keeps everything going in the background. We've also got a couple of restaurants, as you know, up here on the Central Coast.
El Toscano, if you're in Terrigal or Long did I say it wrong?
Long Jetty. No, I just put the Italian accent on it. You said it in an Australian accent. Il Toscano. Yeah,
exactly.
But what's been interesting about that is exactly what we've been talking about here, is he's really stayed true to his authenticity. So my husband is from Tuscany. He is not prepared to do a carbonara with cream. If someone asks for something that is not authentic, he will generally say no, which is why I find it very difficult to work in the restaurants, because I don't like saying no. I like to try and accommodate as best I can. But we've had to make decisions. People are saying, do you do coffee? Do you do pizza? No, we do pasta, and we do it bloody well. There's plenty of people doing coffee. There's plenty of people doing pizza. We've got our business model. It stays true to him and what he is good at. It allows us, obviously you have to think of the bottom line and all that as well. It allows us to be able to run 2 restaurants in these challenging times and keep them going and be successful with them. But there's a lot of no's that have had to be said along the way, to be able to get to that point where we can happily say that they're doing well, and we can go on a holiday if we want to, kind of thing. But it's all come back down to knowing what's important to you, what you stand for, and not compromising on that.
you've just reminded me. I think the first time we met you guys was at your house, and you guys served like a bread and pasta sauce type dish.
Oh, Papa Pomodoro. Oh my God, I've forgotten about that. I need to get
It
him to
was
make that.
amazing. I've never had anything like it. It was amazing.
Yes,
Absolutely
that's
amazing.
true. Oh my God, my pregnant belly is like, my baby's doing somersaults in the belly now, just thinking about it. It's like the ultimate comfort food. Yeah. Yeah, that's as Tuscan as you get. See, that's a good example.
Yeah. I can't have the bread anymore, but
No.
I will forever remember.
Oh,
Forever
good.
remember.
Well, it warmed your heart. I'm happy.
R.I.P. to my days of bread. So tell me a little bit more about your where you're up to now. What are you doing now?
Yeah, so
outside of the restaurants, obviously.
yeah. So basically, on this journey, as I said, I realized comedy is very important to me. Buggering about is very important to me. I used to think I couldn't do that in business. I had to be serious and professional all the time. But actually, that's who I am, and I deliver the results at the same time. So I remember thinking before I came back to the business, why can't I just have a thing? Like, why can't I just be a lawyer or, an accountant and just have this thing that I'm good at and then sell it? And I was like, well, hey, I'm good at buggering about and having fun and being authentic. Why can't I just sell that? And so now that really is what everything is based on. So really focusing on, because I love presenting and I love speaking, that's always given me energy. So I've kind of rejigged the way I do that. So it is more of an experience rather than just me standing and delivering, which is where I started. So it is about giving people an experience, whether it is through physically speaking or virtually speaking. I host podcasts for people. I present for people. I've got my own podcast. So that's my wheelhouse. And so that's just where I'm focusing. I'll still coach people if they come up to me and they're the right client, but that's not where I see my future. My future is in presenting and delivering experiences for people. So that's now my business model.
Nice. Anybody who is listening, go and check out Banterpreneurs.
Yes.
Excellent podcast. Lots of fun.
Ben will be on it soon. I haven't asked him yet. But
I've literally been sitting here waiting for you to ask.
Well, I've been making you sweat.
Awesome. Well, I definitely will accept when you
Excellent.
invite me officially.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about then because you've talked about being authentic. I know you're somebody who has like some sort of core beliefs, things that you believe in, you kind of stick to. Tell us a little bit more about like your approach and the things that you believe are really important when it comes to growing businesses.
I think the first one where I did go wrong for a long time is really knowing my audience. So of course, first you got to know yourself, like I said, we've been through that, but then really understanding, who am I talking to? What do they need? What do they want? I want to know more than they know that they know, if that makes sense. I have my coaching background. I am obsessed with human behavior and the way the brain works. So I do have quite a good insight. I'm an NLP practitioner, so I've kind of learned how to read between the lines when people talk and understand kind of what is actually going on when they say things. So I find that very helpful in this process, is to understand what actually do these people want, and then how can I communicate that to them or not? maybe I understand what they want and I can't deliver it. That's fine. I'll tell them I'm not the one for you. But just really intimately understanding my audience is a very large learning process that I've had to go through. No one wants to speak to someone and not get a response. That makes you feel really crap. So being really clear on who it is you're speaking to and speaking to them in their language is very important. Now, what's interesting is I'm saying speaking to them in their language, which you might think, oh, well, that's not authentic, Laura. You said it's all about being yourself. But what I've learned is you've got to make people feel comfortable. first of all. And the best way to make people feel comfortable is to be relatable, is to be something that they know. That all comes back to how the brain works and the stress response. If you can give people certainty, if you can create a comfortable space, they're going to relax, they're going to be more open, and then you can take them on the journey that you want to take them on. So the easiest way to do that initially is just understand, who are they, what do they need to hear, and how do they need to hear it. So really figuring that out has been one of the biggest learnings, I think, for me, and one of the biggest, has had the biggest impact in my business.
How do you kind of convert that into like a strategy though? So that knowing your audience, a lot of people use things like customer avatars, for example, to say, okay, so this is my customer, this is what they're interested in, this is how they talk, you know, all that sort of stuff. Is there an approach that you've taken to that, you know, delivering on that know your audience belief?
Yeah, so I have created my avatars. The way I've done that is to actually interview people who I think are my avatars and write down every single word that they said. Now I can do it on Zoom and record it. I'd have to write it down. But so you're getting their language as well and things in their words. So I, when I started out, just interviewed, like I was focusing on business women at that time. So I just interviewed loads of business women. Each woman I spoke to, I'd ask for a referral to another one. And I just asked them all sorts of questions around what keeps you up at night, you know, the deeper questions. So that I can kind of have that as the foundation when I'm talking to them. You know, it might be, I know I'm talking about coaching now or speaking. What I'm really talking about is the fact that you're knackered and you feel overwhelmed, you feel like an imposter. So you can sort of filter that in subtly. So yeah, just speaking to them. But then also I will go on Facebook groups, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, and just see what people are talking about, obviously the people in my audience, and just understand what questions are they asking, what comments are they making, and then I'll just kind of just keep, because everything changes, right? So I'll just keep kind of adding that to the information around them, and okay, I know who the person is, but this is what they're talking about right now.
Yeah, there's so many parts to that upfront. So we call it, and I know a lot of people call it this too, I'm not the first one to, we call it the demand creation sort of part of sales and marketing, which incorporates things like, you know, knowing who your audience is, what's your customer avatar, how do you want to communicate with them, what sort of topics do you want to talk about, what conversations do you want to win and own, and then how do you like build that into an audience? And how do you take that audience and convert that audience into demand that you can then capture in order to sell to? Is there, I don't know, I mean, I haven't, I don't know if you necessarily have an answer to this, because honestly, it's quite a difficult question to answer.
Let's see.
Is there an approach you take to kind of think about that intersection between like, who are my audience, what am I talking to them about, and what do I want to sell them? Because those things actually like, they do have to marry up. There does have to be a connection between the two in order for it to have a commercial impact. There's no point in building an audience for a thing that you don't sell.
Yes, 100%. And when I came back to Uppy, that's what I did. First of all, I just was building the audience, because I didn't know what I wanted to sell actually at that time. I just knew I wanted to engage them in this different way. And that was good for a start. And then it got to the point where I was like, oh, I got nothing. It's like inviting someone around to your house for dinner, but they're not actually giving them dinner. Do you know what I mean? I didn't have anything to give them. So I was kind of in a unique position in that way, because I then let them guide me as to what they wanted. Because initially I didn't in my business, first of all, but after I'd kind of come back to it, I knew that I wanted them to guide me. I knew, of course, it was going to be around things that I'm good at, but I wasn't sure on the specifics of it, if you like. So once I had built a community again and engaged them, then again, it's just asking them questions. Like if you were to, this is when I was going back into the coaching, if you were to engage a coach right now, what would you engage them for? What are your biggest challenges? So I then just tried to understand what it is that my ideal people wanted, and then understand, okay, well, can I deliver that? If so, like, what can I build around that so that I'm actually giving the people what they want? I think I said before, I was very guilty of not realizing where they were and trying to sell things to them that they didn't realize they needed. So actually, to be honest, the foundation, the thing that I offered was pretty much the same as it always was, but the way that I was packaging it up and communicating to them was very different.
Yep.
Did that answer the question?
It does, yeah. And sometimes that is that kind of matchup, that is that intersection between what you sell and the audience that you're building, is actually how you represent and present and package up the thing that you sell. Right. Sometimes that does make the connection.
Yeah, definitely. And and same when I'm selling speaking gigs, right? I might have, like, I've got one, my like most popular talk. I can package that up in probably 10 different ways, but the content is the same. But I will just sell it differently depending on what the person is looking for. They're still all going to get the same value from it. But they need to hear from me that it's going to deliver on different aspects or give their audience a different experience. So I think, yeah, it's about finding that blend between, you got this product and you got this service, that's what you're good at, that's great, so you want to sell that, but then you've got to kind of combine it and understand what do they need, or what do they need to hear in order to then make that move to actually commit to whatever it is that you're doing or selling.
Yeah, that I think in everything in marketing and sales, like a lot of people think about the individual checkpoints, right? Like get the email address, add them to the audience, send it, like all the pieces that all the things you do and the stages you have them in, and actually not that much about how do you convince someone to transition from one stage to another.
Yes.
Like, what is the how are they going to go from there to here? How are we going to entice them to move from one stage to another? And so they end up in these cycles with their customers, where a customer lands in a stage and then they chase them in whatever version that is. It might be they go into an email sequence and a retargeting sequence, and now we're chasing them because they've gone into that sequence, and it's like buy. Same in a sales process. Like, we have a meeting with them and we send them a proposal, and now we're chasing them. Did you read the proposal? Did you share the proposal with the other people in the bit? Like, and we're just like chasing and hoping that they'll make a decision and decide to move to the next stage themselves.
Yeah,
those transitions are like underrated.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, once you know them, you can understand what they need at each point. And I know you have a process in your Trust the Process around making things easy for them.
You'd want to hope so.
Yeah, I know. You got to have a process to trust, my friend. And it's around making things easy for them, right? To then be able to make the next step. And again, it comes back to this idea around making people feel comfortable, removing uncertainty, making them feel like they're understood. That all creates this safe environment for them, so that they are more willing and able to open up and go on the journey with you. And again, that's something I learned, first of all, if they don't know stress is the problem, I've got to educate them on stress. First of all, I can't just give them the solution when they don't realize what the problem is, so they just need some articles and some things. And then once they realize stress is the problem, then I need to talk to them about the solution. And then once they understand that, I need to then let them know how I deal with that solution. And then I need to, I had to learn how to give them what they need at every single step, so they had that certainty, they had that understanding, and then they could transition through that appropriately, which I think is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. I don't have a particularly good transition from this to the next part of the discussion. So I'm just going to transition by telling you that I don't have a good one.
Perfect.
I think that anybody that does really well in business is typically somebody who's quite self-led when it comes to learning. You know, they're usually a voracious learner in some capacity. They might read, they might take courses, they might go out and talk to, go to events, whatever, right? There's 1,000 different ways that you can learn stuff. What has been your approach to learning? Where have you kind of acquired the most amount of information and knowledge that you've been able to use? Where's that come from?
I love audiobooks. Because
Same.
you know, like all of us, I'm busy. I like to do my exercise every day, so I can kind of incorporate both. And I find that when I read, I usually fall asleep. I'm nearly 41, guys. I'm getting on. I can't read a book and stay awake. But I really enjoy that. I'll listen to an audiobook and then I'm forever writing things in my notes to remember from what I'm listening to. I love going to live events as well, and learning. I love learning from people that have done the things that I want to do, and I love learning from people's mistakes as well. Number one, because it makes you realize that you're not a terrible business owner and you're not a failure. But number two, hopefully you can kind of mitigate some of those mistakes as well, which is why I share all the time how many mistakes I've made. But yeah, I just love audiobooks. But I've got to tell you, actually, one interesting thing is I do find every now and then I have to stop trying to learn, because I can be too much of a learner, and somewhere along the line you just got to stop and actually implement the things that you've learned. So I do, like, I'll have sprints, if you like, where I'm just like, information, yes, and then I'm like, okay, no, now we must be, and we must implement, and then, you know, we'll go towards the next thing when I feel like I need to fill a gap or level up or whatever.
Yeah, that, I think that's like a natural part of learning. And if you don't do that, actually a lot of the stuff won't land. Until you can read something, but until you try and do it and see how it applies in real life and what you need to kind of adapt to your situation, till you do that a few times, it doesn't actually fully land with you. And it's ultimately just a series of quotes from books. I went through, like a lot of people, I gave myself a reading challenge in 2021. I know a lot of people did this. I read between
I remember,
books and audiobooks.
your posts.
It was almost 60 books I went through in a year. And
epic.
I would say I've got real lessons that I'm really using right now from maybe 6 of them.
Yeah. What an effective use of your time.
Hey, I had a great time. I loved most of them. There were some great books in there, but I didn't do any testing with the information that I was given, right? It's different when you're reading for learning than when you're reading for enjoyment. You know, a good story. You have to do something with the information. Otherwise it just floats away.
Even discussing it with people, right? You might not implement everything, but this is why I love my business communities, is to just chat about, you know, what I've just read or what I've just learned or what this person said. And I find that helps to solidify it a bit more in your brain. Even if you don't do something with it, then it's there, it's not going anywhere. It'll kind of come up when it needs to, I think. But particularly in these times, you know, where we're all virtual, I think leaning on our communities is really important. It's always, actually, not just these times, but leaning on our communities to learn and then reinforce our learnings is critical, I think, for growth, but also for mental health and all that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, obviously, I agree with that. You know, I'm a big lover of particularly business networking communities. Obviously, previously having been at the Entourage, which I still love greatly, and actually on my way after this to a networking event with a company called Business Blueprint, which is a big business community in Australia. What's an audiobook that you've listened to recently? Or actually, let me rephrase that. What's a book that you've read or listened to that's had a big impact on you? Give us a good recommendation for the listeners.
Do you know, this might not be one that you would expect, but as I said, I'm all about the personal, and I realized, like, for me, and hopefully you will get that now from me sharing my journey, is that my business, it doesn't and wasn't ever going to and will never work if I'm not operating close to my optimum. I don't have to be firing on all cylinders all the time. But when I was really in my burnout phase, I read a book called Rushing Women's Syndrome. I actually don't think it has to be specifically to women, to be honest with you. Obviously, there's hormone stuff in there that doesn't apply to men, but everything else does. And it literally changed my life because it was me in a book. Like, it explained all of the physiology that was going on. It helped me to understand that it was the stress response, fight or flight. And to that point, doctors, no one had really kind of helped me. So I was just like a hamster on a really very slow wheel. And so that showed me this is what's going on, and then I could go and get the appropriate help. So that was a massive one for me. And then look, there's been all sorts of different business books over the years, but I'm all about mindset stuff. That's really what helps me grow the most. Even the classics, Think and Grow Rich, all that kind of stuff. I just love that kind of stuff. How to be creative. I don't know if this is it. How to be creative like Leonardo da Vinci. I don't think that's the actual title, but just talks about how to unleash your creative juices. Even The Power of Now, which, God, if you've ever listened to the audio version of that, you have to really make your peace with his voice. But for me, that's I mean, of course I need to know business strategy, and I'll listen to books and read books. I actually prefer the business strategy to learn that from real life event things where you can implement things at the same time. But for me, mindset is and has been the key to any success that I've had, or failure, but
Speaking of mindset, I had a moment at an event years ago with a presenter who was talking about mindset, and he came over with his hands to me and he went, "You're only ever this far away from everything you ever wanted." And he went between my ears. I was like, "Oh, very nice one." And it's funny you mentioned The Power of Now, because that's my grandma's favorite book.
Oh, wow.
Of all
Granny.
time, her absolute favorite book. My grandma's in her 80s, and she reads The Power of Now like pretty frequently. She's read it a whole bunch of times. The favorite book ever. Okay.
It's important. It's important.
So to wrap up, tell the people, where can they find you and what might they reach out about?
Well, if you've got any good jokes, definitely reach out with that. Look, you can go to uppy.com.au. Then you can find all of the places to find me from there. As I said, speaking, delivering experiences, hosting podcasts, presenting, emceeing, that's my jam nowadays. So that would be what you might reach out to me for. Log on to it, have a listen to Banterpreneurs. That's an improv podcast for small business owners. I've also written a book, Unfaked, which talks all around burning. It's a story of a lady that burning out, not burning. So there's multiple ways that you can get in touch or consume things that I've done, and you'll find all of them at uppy.com.au.
Awesome. It has been an absolute pleasure. As always.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining the show, and we'll have to have you back sometime.
Please. Well, we'll see you on Banterpreneurs next.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, Laura.
Thanks, Ben.